Assalamu alaikum. Dear students, today we are discussing about iodine deficiency disorders. The learning objectives of this session is that at the end of the presentation, the student is expected to have understood iodine, its metabolism and uses, global, national and local scenarios of iodine deficiency disorders, spectrum of iodine deficiency disorders, and national iodine deficiency disorders control program. Iodine is one of the micronutrients which is essentially required for human consumption. A trace element which is just required in a very small quantity, like a 70-year-old person may require just 5 grams throughout his or her life. A healthy adult body contains just 15 to 20 milligrams of iodine, majority of which is stored in thyroid glands. And when we look at the daily intake of iodine, it's just around 500 micrograms, out of which 120 micrograms are taken up by thyroid gland for synthesis of thyroid hormones. Looking at the presence of iodine or its compound which are iodides in nature, it's the oceans and the seas which has the main repositories, and because of volatilization of the ocean water that led to vaporization and condensation and are carried through winds then as rain or snow into the soils, and that's why some amount of iodine is found in soil. In mountainous regions, because of continuous leaching of iodine due to rains, melting of glaciers, flash floods, there is deficiency of iodine in the top layer of the soil that lead to the deficiency of iodine in the crops grown in those areas. However, the coastal regions have good amount of iodine in the surface of the earth. As already discussed, major portion of iodine is concentrated in the thyroid gland. However, iodine is also found in other body parts in a non-hormonal state, which include mammary glands, eyes, gastric mucosa, cervix, and salivary glands. It plays an important role during feeding of newborns because the breast milk contains some amount of iodine that helps in fetal and neonatal development and also in antioxidant functioning. Further, it has been found that iodine has some role in immune function as well. Regarding metabolism of iodine in human body, as we know that thyroid gland has the major role in iodine metabolism. Upon trapping of iodine from the capillaries, there is synthesis and secretion of thyroglobulin, and there occurs iodization of iodide to iodine there, and with the organification of thyrine, wherein the iodized salt gets coupled with tyrosine to form various compounds of thyroid hormones. In the bloodstream, 99% of thyroid hormones, primarily T3 and T4, circulate in the bound form, and less than 1% circulates in a free form. This free or unbound form is the biologically active form. However, the binding of hormones serves as a reservoir in case of any deficiency in future and also prevents urinary loss of thyroid hormones. Thyroid hormone secretion is regulated by pituitary gland through thyroid stimulating hormone, which operates on a feedback mechanism based on the levels of T4 in the blood. Any fall of T4 level stimulates the pituitary to increase production of TSH, which in turn stimulates the thyroid gland to release T4 into the circulation to maintain normal levels of hormone in the blood. On an average, thyroid gland secretes around 80 micrograms of iodine in the form of T3 and T4 hormones per day, and which is metabolized in the liver, which releases around 60 micrograms of iodine into the ECF, and 20 micrograms of iodine is excreted in the bile and is lost in stool. However, majority of iodine is excreted in urine, and that's why it is an important indicator to understand iodine metabolism in human body. Coming to the epidemiology of iodine deficiency disorders, over the decades, the presence of iodine deficiency disorders globally has come down, and as per the global scorecard of iodine nutrition deficiency, based on median urinary iodine concentration in school age group, that is 6 to 12-year age groups, we still have countries where there is deficiency of iodine in some African countries as well as some areas in Russian region. However, there are some countries where there is excess intake of iodine, which includes some parts of Africa, South America, and some countries in Asia. As per 2012 figures, deaths have been reported due to iodine deficiency, and we can see majority of death is reported or have been reported from African countries, and the spectrum could be because of intrauterine deaths, neonatal deaths, and because of problems with growth and development that lead to early death after birth. Coming to Indian scenario of iodine deficiency disorders, in India it's estimated that 54 million people are suffering from goiter, that is an enlarged thyroid, and 2.2 million people suffer from cretinism, and around 90,000 stillbirths and neonatal deaths are attributed to iodine deficiency disorders. Women in reproductive age groups are more vulnerable to develop iodine deficiency as they have increased demands, especially during pregnancy and also during breastfeeding of their fit newborns. However, over the years, it has been seen that the consumption of iodized salt in India has increased over the decades. If we look at the latest figures provided by NFHS 5, many of the states have almost 100% consumption. You can see around 6 or 7 states having consumption of iodized salt over 99%, while as majority of states have consumption of over 90% of iodized salt, with few states lagging behind having less than 90% of iodized salt consumption. Among the states which have high consumption of iodized salt include Jammu and Kashmir, where we see that 99% of our urban population takes iodized salt, and bit lesser, that is 97.7% of rural population is taking iodized salt. However, when we look at the total, it's around 98% of our population is taking iodized salt as against 95% as per NFHS 4 survey, which was conducted 5 years before NFHS 5 survey. Coming to iodine deficiency disorders, it is the most common endocrinopathy globally and also the most preventable cause of mental retardation. The two major factors responsible for iodine deficiency disorders are either inadequate intake, which could be secondary to low iodine content in the soil, or inadequate iodine utilization, that could be because of interference in its metabolism or transportation, or because of various chemicals, especially the goitrogens in our food. So we can see the iodine deficiency disorders could be because of low dietary intake, which may be due to low iodine levels in soil and food, or low consumption of iodine rich food, or it could be because of inadequate utilization because of presence of goitrogens. There are various risk factors for iodine deficiency, which other than low iodine intake could be because of micronutrient deficiency like selenium, more requirements during pregnancy, exposure to radiation, increase intake or having more plasma levels of goitrogens, more preponderance among women, tobacco consumption, and presence of perchlorates and thiocyanates that interfere with iodine uptake. When we look at the spectrum of iodine deficiency disorders, in pregnancy, it can cause spontaneous abortions, have stillbirths, there could be maldevelopment of fetal brain, and birth of cretins. In childhood, we can see development of goiter, especially among children over 6 to 12 years of age, low IQ, impaired learning, mental retardation, development of motor functioning is delayed, there is stunting of growth, there is apathy in the children, there is squint, the muscle disorders start developing, child may have paralysis, may have speech and hearing defects, there could be high perinatal mortality as well as high infant mortality. Among the adolescents, there could be both mental and growth retardation, while as in adults and all ages, it can present as goiter, hypothyroidism, apathy, impaired mental function, and reduced work output. When we look into genesis of goiter, it's because of deficiency of iodine that lead to thyroid to have thyroglobulin molecule to release thyroid, and because of decreasing level of T4, the pituitary through TSH stimulates the thyroid to increase iodine uptake and release thyroid hormones. If TSH fails to promote release of T4, that leads to hyperplasia of the follicular cells, and in severe deficiency with T4 levels getting less, the TSH levels remain higher, and that stimulates the thyroid gland to undergo hypertrophy and hyperplasia of follicular cells that eventually leads to enlarge of its size and present as goiter. So the spectrum of iodine deficiency could be seen in pregnancy as goiter formation in the mothers. In the developing fetus, there could be severe retardation in development and growth, with maturity of nearly all tissues are affected, and the critical period during the pregnancy extends from second trimester to the second year of life, and deficiency of iodine during this period can lead to the permanent damage to the brain, and that can be prevented by administration of iodine during second trimester of pregnancy that can reverse any such process. But any deficiency, if it is there, can have sustained damage to the mental and physical development. Owing to the maternal iodine deficiency disorders, it's estimated that about one-fifth of pregnant women in India will give birth to children who will not reach their optimal physical and mental potential. So we need to control iodine deficiency. Else, these pregnancies can terminate as abortion, stillbirth, congenital anomalies, or low birth weight. Infants born to iodine deficient mothers who survive the critical postnatal phase can later become cretin, who has both physical and mental disabilities. The neurological manifestations present as severe mental retardation, cerebral diplegia, and deaf mutism in such cretins, and children in endemic areas show both physical and mental developmental disorders, low intelligence quotients, and impaired school performance. Among children, the brain development is adversely affected that can be seen by having neonatal chemical hypothyroidism, which can be measured by TSH and T4 levels. The incidence of NCH in endemic regions in India and in neighboring countries ranges from 6 to 130 per thousand births. And it has been seen that 10% or more of the newborns in severe goiter endemic regions are at risk of developing neonatal hypothyroidism and resultant mental and physical developmental disorders. Among adults, the main presentation is goiter, and its incidence increases with increasing age, seeing more among adolescents with preponderance of girls than in boys, and adult population inhabiting in the iodine deficient areas are characterized by high degree of apathy, reduced mental functioning, lack of physical energy, and reduced work output. All these factors contribute to poor quality of life. Now, how to assess the iodine deficiency? We can go for total goiter rate, which can be seen by palpating the thyroid gland to see whether there is any goiter, or doing ultrasonography, or we can go for biochemical by way of assessing the TSH and thyroglobulin levels in blood, or T3 or T4 levels, and in urine we can go for urinary iodine estimations. Urinary iodine estimation has been found to be an ideal procedure to determine iodine deficiency across the population, and WHO has defined iodine deficiency when mean urinary iodine concentration is less than 50 micrograms per liter in general population. You can see that there is a direct correlation between median urinary iodine concentration with corresponding iodine intake, and optimally it should be around 100 to 199 micrograms per liter, that will correspond to around 150 to 299 micrograms daily iodine intake, and below that a person can have decreased iodine intake, and that can lead to decreased production of thyroid hormones. Same way, among pregnant women, the adequate levels are even more, with 150 to 249 micrograms per liter, and any amount less than that is insufficient because she has to have more reserves and requirements because of growing fetus. As per UNICEF, ICCIDD, and WHO, they have given a joint statement regarding iodine requirements, and National Ministry of Nutrition ICMR has also given a latest guidelines. As per the recommendations, a preschool child under 5 years of age require around 90 micrograms per day, while a 6 to 12-year-old child, school going child, require 120 micrograms, and an adolescent and adult require 150 micrograms. However, a pregnant and lactating woman requires 250 micrograms per day. As per National Institute of Nutrition ICMR 2020 guidelines, the estimated daily requirement is approximately same as the requirements given by WHO and UNICEF, which is around 140 to 150 micrograms per day. These are the guidelines given by Indian Council of Medical Research for various age groups for iodine requirements per day. As 90% of iodine comes from food and around 10% comes from drinking water, so we need to take food which are rich in iodine. However, the common source nowadays is iodized salt, but it should be kept in an airtight container away from direct sunlight, heat, and moisture. And its iodine content should be at least 30 parts per million at production level, while at consumer level, it should be not less than 15 parts per million. The main iodine rich foods include seafood, which has the highest mean iodine contents, which especially the sea fish. Then we have freshwater fish, vegetables, meat, eggs, legumes, and fruits. So this should form the pattern of our consumption of nutrients so that we get adequate amount of iodine from our dietary sources. Coming to National Iodine Deficiency Disorders Control Program. The National Goiter Control Program was one of the earliest national programs dedicated to the elimination of iodine deficiency disorders, launched in year 1962, but primarily it was related to control of goiter. A landmark study was conducted in Kangda Valley in Himachal Pradesh from 1956 to 1972, which demonstrated the effectiveness of salt iodization in reducing goiter rates. And based on that study, the National Goiter Control Program was formulated. In August 1992, the National Goiter Control Program was renamed as National Iodine Deficiency Disorders Control Program, with the view of having wide spectrum of iodine deficiency disorders like mental and physical retardation, deaf mutism, cretinism, stillbirths, abortions, etc. And this program is being implemented throughout the country. The goals of National Iodine Deficiency Control Program is number 1, to bring the prevalence of iodine deficiency disorders to below 5% in the country, and to ensure 100% consumption of adequately iodated salt, that is having 15 parts per million at consumption level at the household level. The objectives of National Iodine Deficiency Control Program include number 1, surveys to assess the magnitude of iodine deficiency disorders in the districts, supply of iodated salt in place of common salt, that is uniodized salt, resurveys to assess iodine deficiency disorders and impact of iodated salt after every 5 years in the districts, laboratory monitoring of iodated salt and urinary iodine excretion, and lastly the health education and publicity. Regarding assessment of iodine deficiency disorders, many surveys are being carried out throughout the country, and our institution has taken many such studies in Kashmir division, and we have covered almost all the districts in these couple of decades. And recent one being in 2017, when we conducted iodine deficiency disorders among school children in the age group of 6 to 12 years in districts of Anantnag, Baramulla, Badgam and Srinagar. Many such publications have come up based on reports from these surveys. During these surveys, we classify goiter based on palpation. So, as per WHO, there are 3 grades. Grade 0, when there is no palpable or visible goiter. In grade 1, a goiter is palpable by using fingers, but it's not visible. And in grade 2, it's visible from a distance. So based on that, we assess the total goiter rate. The total goiter rate, that is the number of goiters of grade 1 and grade 2 divided by total examined, gives us an indication whether there is severity of iodine deficiency disorders. So if it is less than 5, then we take it as no health problem. But any observation of 5% or more in school children in 6 to 12 years of age can show us that there is presence of public health problem because of iodine deficiency disorders. So if the percentage is more than 20 and less than 30, we call it moderate, and more than 30 is taken as severe iodine deficiency disorder in the community. This is the snapshot of the study conducted in District Anantnag, where we found the total iodine rates in goiter rates. Same way in Baramulla district, we can see around 15%. Another thing what we do is estimation of urinary iodine, and again we check among school children so as to estimate the presence of any iodine deficiency in human population. Regarding awareness, we try to find out the presence of awareness among population, and most of the people have observed and had learned about iodized salt consumption from electronic media, which is evident that 74.4% people have heard about iodized salt from electronic media, and many of the population is consuming by the word iodized written on the salt packets. Further, the decision of buying the salt lies with the head of the household, and almost half of the population has mentioned that it's the head of the household, and the second important decision maker is the spouse about buying of iodized salt. So we need to have more awareness, and in this regard we have World Iodine Deficiency Day every year on 21st of October. So we need to have more awareness among general population so that the states and places where iodized salt consumption is less, they need to be made aware about consumption of iodized salt to prevent iodine deficiency disorder spectrum. And our institution is a part of Iodine Global Network, as we have been conducting such surveys in last 2 decades. These are some of the references for this presentation, and thank you very much for your patient hearing.